What was life like for a Red Imperial Royal Guard? Well, welcome back, curious acolytes of the Force. We've been expecting you. The Empire's resources went heavily into the manufacturing of machinery and the training of many branches of other military within their ranks. Most commonly, we see the stormtroopers being the ones who are on the front lines of many conflicts, and so many associate the general skill and ability of the stormtroopers with that of the Empire as a whole. However, there were several different divisions of Imperial forces that rose above the rest and had the capability of striking fear into any enemy that they came across. The Empire's military forces get a bad rap. This would include such forces as the Inquisitors and the Red Royal Guard. The Emperor's Royal Guard, also known simply as the Red Guard, are some of the most specialized and highly trained members of the Galactic Empire. Even though we do not see them fighting very often at all, there are stories of one single Red Guard entirely changing the course of an entire battle. We have analyzed the Royal Guard before, but today we wanted to compare them to the other branches of the Imperial military and see how they measured up, specifically against the Inquisitors themselves. So come along with us today as we open the Imperial Handbook and prepare these troops for inspection. First though, according to our scans, many ships passing through this battle station have not yet registered in our system, so if you want to continue receiving updates on our daily Star Wars content, be sure to blast that subscribe button. Now, onto the video. Each member of the Emperor's Royal Guard is specifically chosen out of a larger group of around 30 to 40 applicants. The Guard must fight their way to the top of their class and prove their undying loyalty to the Emperor himself before they officially join the ranks of the Red Guard. Each member of the Royal Guard then, we can reasonably deduce, is worth around 40 or so men themselves. So whenever we see the Emperor traveling with around 2 to 4 Red Guards by his side, it would be the same as if he were traveling with his own personal battalion of stormtroopers. But let's go a little bit deeper. What were the training methods used on the Red Royal Guard? The Red Guard were trained in the Achanti martial arts, which was a system of combat that turned the person's body into a living weapon, and was also said to even be able to counter a Force wielder. The Royal Guard trainees were honed into basically becoming superhumans, who fought as if they were trained in the Force itself, despite many of them not being Force sensitive at all. Night and day, they were drilled and often dueled against each other with punishment of failure, often being death. For every class of Royal Guards, the Emperor would make a personal appearance to them, find the one that was most skilled among them, and have them duel none other than Darth Vader one-on-one in front of the other trainees. Obviously, they were never meant to beat Darth Vader, and he would kill them in the end. This was to show them that even their best was not good enough, and to protect the Emperor meant that they had to become better than their opponent, no matter who it was. In the very end, the two that remained in the top of their class were brought before the Emperor himself and forced to fight to victory. The one who won the duel must execute the other, foregoing all friendships or bonds they would have made all along the way in their training in exchange for complete loyalty to their Emperor. Darth Sidious, though, was actually very good and pleasant to his Royal Guards and treated them all with dignity and respect. A wise move on his behalf, as these would be the men that were going to be expected to lay down their lives for a moment's notice on him if the need ever came. The Emperor is seen on several occasions being kind to his guards, with one occasion him offering for the captain of the guard to remove his helmet, remarking that he must grow weary having to wear it all of the time. Another occasion saw the Emperor telling the Royal Guard trainees to rise from their bow, as he wanted to show them respect for the kind of sacrifice that they were making for him. All bowed before the Emperor, so this was exceptionally rare. These simple gestures of kindness and respect built the Royal Guard to be psychopathically loyal to Darth Sidious, to the point where many of the Red Guard was prepared to defy even Darth Vader if they did not feel his orders were in line with the Emperor's best interests. Before exacting any of Vader's orders, oftentimes they would first look to the Emperor, who would nod to them in approval for them to carry out any directives, having no fear for Lord Vader. Obviously, this sort of thing made Vader despise the Red Guard, not to mention he always felt that they were watching him constantly. However, if any of the Red Guard were to fail in protecting the Emperor as efficiently as Vader felt they should, then he was given full leeway by Palpatine to execute them as a lesson. But what about their armament? The Royal Guard wore fully functional battle armor, which was obscured by loose-fitting ceremonial robes, and provided superior protection than that of a normal Imperial armor. Although ceremonial, the red armor did not hamper their movement nor their fighting. if for some reason they were ever to be put on the front lines. The Royal Guard were equipped with another set of armor similar to Stormtrooper armor, but colored red. Many guards had the same loadout of equipment as many Stormtroopers, though it sometimes changed depending on the specific guard's specialties. Generally though, they carried force pikes, which were a long spear-like stun baton that had an immensely powerful electrical current. Underneath their robes, they kept hidden an arsenal of weapons ranging from vibro swords, heavy blaster pistols, light repeating blaster rifles, heavy blaster rifles, and sometimes even a homing launcher depending on where they were. Remember how we stated earlier that a single red guard could change the tide of an entire battle? Well, it did happen in a comic that takes place shortly after the death of the Emperor. A Red Royal Guard had joined the fight against a small army of stormtroopers under the command of a traitorous Imperial commander. This single Red Guard cut down wave after wave of stormtroopers by dual-wielding his vibroblade as well as a heavy blaster pistol. He fought like a force sensitive, with no stormtrooper landing a single blow on him, and he even deflected a blaster shot. At one point in the battle, he took out a TIE interceptor by bullseyeing the pilot through the cockpit viewport, causing the pilot to crash and take out even more stormtroopers. After this, they all began to retreat, leaving this one guard, the victor. An offshoot of the Imperial Royal Guard that we will briefly be covering is the Imperial Shadow Guard. When some of the Red Guard displayed potential and force sensitivity, Sidious would hand them over to Vader to be trained in the ways of the dark side. These guards would forgo their red uniforms and traditional weaponry in favor of black uniforms and the same style, along with a red lightsaber or a lightsaber pike. It wasn't just Royal Guards that became Shadow Guards, however, but also fallen Jedi. In Legends, the Inquisitorius weren't the only sect of Imperial Force sensitives that aided in hunting down Jedi. Specifically in The Force Unleashed, we see the use of Shadow Guards in many places, and the Empire felt confident in sending them to assassinate Galen Marek once he became a liability. They put up a valiant fight, but were no match for the power of Starkiller. However, they displayed the ability to completely wield their saber weapons, as well as even the ability to use Force Lightning. The ability of Force Lightning is one that I think is misunderstood by many. You see, Force Lightning is considered to be one of the ultimate Sith abilities to master. It is difficult and requires a lot of training to get down, and demands much sacrifice within oneself to use on a regular basis. To be able to focus one's hatred and use the Force to manifest it into a physical, plasmatic form is a stroke only used by darkside adepts. While Vader and Sidious may not have taught the Shadow Guard everything for fear of any rivals rising among their ranks, it's clear that they trusted them enough to share certain powers that would make them stronger and more formidable. I would now like to point out that in canon, none of the Inquisitors have displayed the ability to use Force Lightning, which leads us to reasonably assume that they don't know how to. This isn't surprising, as we know that many are fallen Jedi that Vader tortured and trained to hunt other Jedi post Order 66. While the Inquisitors were phenomenal at taking down weaker or more middle of the road Jedi, they weren't very effective against Jedi that knew what they were doing. That job was normally left to Lord Vader. We did a video some time back ranking the Inquisitors in terms of power and competence. In that video, we did note that although the Inquisitorius was pretty good at what they did, the Empire hated them and regarded them as fools and embarrassments to the Empire because of their repeated failures. We rarely, though, hear any of such opinion concerning the Red Royal Guard nor the Shadow Guard. In terms of comparison, let's say it like this: the Inquisitors are pretty good at hunting down and often killing Jedi. This is their main purpose, and we see them do it very often. They are usually accompanied by stormtroopers, other Inquisitors, or purge troopers. We know that Shadow Guards also hunted Force sensitives, but not always Jedi. It is a known fact that Jedi weren't Palpatine's only concern, or really even his main concern after the establishment of the Empire. In fact, the idea behind the creation of the Inquisitorius was just so he didn't have to be concerned with the Jedi any longer. What he also did was start systematically drawing out and hunting down all other dark side organizations, such as the Sorcerers of Ran, or the Prophets of the Dark Side, so that the Sith would have no competition in their rule of the galaxy. We have a theory that while the Inquisitors were meant to hunt down the Jedi, the Shadow Guards were meant to hunt down dark side cults. Think about it. The Shadow Guards were taken from the best of the best, the Emperor's Red Royal Guards. These guards who turned out to be Force sensitive, and then were trained in the dark side in a way that the Inquisitors were not, given the powers of Force Lightning and much more. We don't see much of the Shadow Guard around, possibly because they're always in the unknown regions and the Outer Rim, looking for any Darksiders and executing them. They would need extra training in the dark side to best the other Force sensitives and adepts. This theory also rings true for why Shadow Guards were sent after Starkiller, since he was a Darksider himself. Another thing to consider is that even the Grand Inquisitor couldn't take out a ragtag group of rebels, and a group of Inquisitors weren't always the brightest without Vader's immediate direction, whereas a single Royal Guard was able to fight off an army without using the Force to our knowledge. When laying it out like this, I think the victor of this little contest is clear. The Royal Guard and the Shadow Guard by proxy are the better Imperial sect than the Inquisitors, even by a considerable margin. This isn't to say that if a single member of the Red Royal Guard fought the Grand Inquisitor, that the Grand Inquisitor wouldn't destroy him, simply that a non-Force sensitive Red Royal Guard appeared to be more effective than an Inquisitor, and the Grand Inquisitor himself would certainly have a very difficult time with a member of the Shadow Guard. But what do you think? For me, the answer here is pretty clear, and despite the Inquisitors having Jedi training and training from Lord Vader, their actual levels and records of success pale in comparison to the impressive records set by the Red Royal Guard. But let us know your thoughts down below, and as always my friends, may the Force be with you, and I hope to see you in a later video.